drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% cents rate in April. Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million with this locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang. Gyeongju, a city that holds 1,000 years of history. The cherished values, preserved over time, have shaped who we are today. Now, through new encounters, we step into a better future. Sustainability, innovation. With the spirit of connection, a new millennium story begins. As APEC and Gyeongju come together. APEC meets Gyeongju.
A special counsel team is seeking a 10-year prison term for former President Yoon Suk-yeol over obstruction of justice and other charges related to his botched martial law order. Regarding North Korea's latest display of its military might, South Korea's Unification Ministry believes the North is seeking to justify its nuclear weapons development by citing the development of U.S. strategic assets and South Korea's plans to develop a nuclear-powered submarine. The entire nation was hit by a blistering cold snap on Friday, with temperatures feeling as cold as minus 20 degrees Celsius in Seoul. The cold spell will ease up on the weekend. After months of investigations and hearings, the special prosecutor team for former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration has made its first sentencing demand. 10 years imprisonment for interfering with the arrest warrant served on him and infringing upon the cabinet's rights on the night of the declaration. Our Kim Do-yeon starts us off.
The special prosecutor team has requested a combined sentence of 10 years in prison for former President Yoon regarding charges separate from the leading one of insurrection. This came on Friday at the Seoul Central District Court in what is the first sentencing request for the former president related to his martial law declaration. Prosecutors argue that Yoon abused his official authority by hindering the investigation into the insurrection case and infringed upon the rights of the cabinet in its calling for a meeting during the declaration. The 10-year demand is broken down into 3 parts: 5 years for obstructing the execution of his arrest warrant, 3 years for infringing on the deliberation rights of cabinet members and ordering the deletion of data from secure military phones, and 2 years for the retroactive creation and disposal of martial law declaration documents. The prosecution highlighted the severity of the offenses, stating Yoon privatized state agencies to conceal his actions. It emphasized that instead of apologizing, the former president shifted responsibility to subordinates and attempted to obscure the essence of the case to evade punishment. The special prosecutor appealed to the court to uphold the constitutional principle of equality before the law. Meanwhile, the defense argued that sentencing should be delayed until a verdict is reached in the main insurrection ringleader trial. Regarding the obstruction of arrest, they claim the Corruption Investigation Office lacked jurisdiction, making the warrant illegal, and news resistance was a lawful act against an invalid use of public authority. This trial covers 8 specific charges across 5 categories. First, obstructing the CIO's warrant execution, where testimony confirmed orders for forceful patrolling by the security service. Second, ordering the deletion of data from the secure phones of 3 key military commanders. Other charges include violating cabinet deliberation rights, creating and destroying martial law documents after the fact, and ordering the release of false information to foreign media. The first ruling is set to come out on January 16th next year. 김도현, Arirang News.
E-commerce giant Coupang says the recently leaked personal information of over 33 million of its users was not transferred to third parties. But the government asserts that this unilateral claim cannot be confirmed. Oh Seong has more.
Coupang says it identified the former employee responsible for the large-scale leak of customer information after tracking down the individual through digital forensic evidence. According to the e-commerce giant on Thursday, a former staff member admitted to using a stolen security key to access some 33 million customer accounts. Of those, data from about 3,000 accounts were stored. The information included customer names, email addresses, phone numbers, home addresses, limited order details, and roughly 2,000 access codes for shared apartment building entrances. Coupang said no payment information, login credentials, or personal customs clearance numbers were accessed. The company added that the perpetrator deleted all stored data after media reports emerged and said there is no evidence that any information was transmitted to third parties. The individual also told investigators that the laptop used in the breach was destroyed and thrown into a river. Coupang said the device was later recovered during a search of the river. The company said it commissioned top-tier global cybersecurity firms from the early stages of the incident, and that the result of those investigations are consistent with the perpetrator's statements. Coupang said it will continue to provide updates and will separately announce customer compensation measures. However, the government has objected to Coupang's disclosure, saying that the company unilaterally made public matters currently under investigation by a joint public-private probe. The Science Ministry says Coupang's claims have not yet been verified and remain subject to confirmation, adding that investigators are still examining the type, scale and cause of the data leak. On Christmas Day, the Presidential Office convened an emergency ministerial-level meeting to discuss countermeasures to the data leakage. Chaired by Presidential Policy Chief Kim Yong-bum, the meeting was attended by senior officials from relevant ministries, agencies and foreign affairs circles. This comes amid allegations over Coupang's lobbying of US political and government figures, which could lead to potential diplomatic and trade friction, alongside separate criticism from former US National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien over his handling of the Coupang data breach. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
South Korea's Unification Ministry says North Korea's latest display of military might comes in response to security commitments between Seoul and Washington, including the pursuit of nuclear submarines by South Korea. Park Jun-han has more.
A day after North Korea's display and inspection of surface-to-air missiles and nuclear-powered submarines, South Korea's Ministry of Unification on Friday said the move appears to be a response to South Korea's plans to develop its own nuclear-powered sub.
Domestically, it appears to be aimed at showing off achievements in the defense sector and justifying the advancement of nuclear capabilities and the strengthening of military power. Externally, it is seen as drawing attention to the deployment of U.S. strategic assets and South Korea's push to build a nuclear-powered submarine.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced on Thursday that the military had detected launch signs in advance and tracked several presumed surface-to-air missiles fired from the Sondok area in Hamgyeongnam-do province around 5 p.m. on Wednesday toward the East Sea. Observed by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Pyongyang conducted the first test of a new type of high-altitude, long-range surface-to-air missile system over the East Sea. Kim congratulated those who participated in the test, which was presented as a standard procedure to enhance the country's air defense capabilities. While a joint analysis with U.S. intelligence is underway, the Joint Chiefs of Staff stressed its robust allied deterrence posture against any potential provocations by the North. Also on Thursday, Kim Jong-un visited a shipyard that is allegedly constructing an 8,700-ton nuclear-powered strategic guided missile submarine. The North Korean state-run Korean Central News Agency quoted Kim as sharply criticizing South Korea's plan to develop nuclear-powered submarines. Kim said the plan, under the approval of the U.S., would further destabilize the Korean peninsula. He described the move as an aggressive act that seriously infringes on North Korea's national security and maritime sovereignty, adding that Pyongyang views it as a security threat that must be met with a response. On Friday, North Korea's Korean Central News Agency showed images of Kim Jong-un and officials looking at missile parts. Kim reportedly emphasized the need to expand overall manufacturing capacity and assign technical and economic tasks in support of the 5-year goal of developing advanced missiles. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Now, on Christmas Day, the U.S. staged a strike against Islamic State militants in northwest Nigeria at the request of Nigerian government, citing the group have been targeting Christians in the area. Cha Yun-kyung has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump said in a post on Truth Social that the United States military executed numerous perfect strikes against Islamic State targets in Nigeria late on Thursday local time. Trump said ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria have been targeting and viciously killing innocent Christians, adding that the airstrikes follow his warning that his country will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper under his leadership. U.S. Africa Command said that Thursday's airstrikes were carried out by the U.S. military in coordination with Nigeria in Sokoto State, killing multiple IS militants at the request of Nigerian authorities. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also wrote in a post on social media that the president was clear last month the killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria must end, showing a sign of possible further strikes. In northern Nigeria, thousands have been killed in violence spanning more than a decade. Both Muslims and Christians have been victims of this violence. This is the second time within a week that President Trump has ordered American military strikes against a branch of the Islamic State. Last week, the U.S. carried out dozens of airstrikes against the Islamic State in Syria, following the president's pledge to retaliate for the deaths of 2 U.S. Army soldiers and a civilian interpreter who were killed in a terrorist attack earlier in December. Cha Yun-kyung, Arirang News.
Elsewhere, air raids persisted into Christmas Day, even as efforts to end the Russian aggression against Ukraine continue. Lee Seung-ja has this report.
Fighting between Russia and Ukraine continued through Christmas, with both sides stepping up attacks on key energy infrastructure. As Russian offensives continued, Ukraine launched retaliatory drone and missile strikes on Christmas Day, targeting several facilities inside Russia. The Ukrainian military said it struck an oil refinery in Russia's Rostov region using British-made Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Ukraine also carried out long-range drone attacks on oil product storage tanks in the Russian port city of Temerik, as well as gas processing plant in Orenburg in southwestern Russia. Both Moscow and Kyiv have increasingly targeted energy facilities in recent weeks, viewing them as critical leverage points as the war nears its 4th year and diplomatic efforts cautiously resume. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said he held an hour-long call with U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner to discuss possible ways to end the conflict.
Today, we spoke with representatives of the U.S. President for almost an hour. We spoke with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. It was a really good conversation, many details.
Earlier this week, Zelensky unveiled a new 20-point draft peace plan, describing it as the main framework for ending the war. The proposal is a scaled-down version of an earlier 28-point plan that had been discussed between the U.S. and Russia, in which Kyiv criticized for favoring Moscow through territorial concessions and limits on Ukraine's military. Zelensky said key territorial issues remain unresolved and stressed that a direct meeting with Trump would be needed to address the most sensitive points. Meanwhile, Russia said talks with the United States are making slow but steady progress.
In the negotiation process on the settlement of the Ukraine conflict, in the negotiation process with the United States, there is slow but steady progress.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova also accused Western European countries of trying to derail negotiations and urged Washington to counter such moves. 이승재, Arirang News.
It was one freezing day here in the country, with the chill factor rendering the temperature minus 20 degrees Celsius during the early morning commute. Now the severe cold will go away on the weekend. Jin tells us more.
The temperature in Seoul plummeted to minus 11.8 degrees Celsius this morning, the coldest morning of the winter. Biting cold winds made it feel as cold as minus 20 degrees after wind chill. Cold wave warnings have been issued for most regions nationwide on Friday for the first time this winter. A cold wave warning is issued when morning low temperatures of minus 15 degrees Celsius or lower persist for 2 or more days, or when sudden extreme cold is expected to cause significant damage over a wide area. A severe cold wave warning has been issued for Gyeonggi-do Province, Northern Gangwon-do Province, Daecheon in Chungcheongbuk-do Province, and the northeastern mountainous areas of Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Sub-zero temperatures persisted throughout the day today, with Seoul only reaching minus 4 degrees for its daytime high. Heavy snow warnings are in effect for Ulleungdo and Dokdo, while heavy snow advisories have been issued for the west coast of Jeollanam-do Province and the mountainous areas of Jeju. Today, Ulleungdo and Dokdo Islands are expected to receive up to 15 centimeters of snow on top of what's there already. Jeju Island's mountainous areas will see 5 to 10 centimeters of snow, and the west coast of Jeollanam-do Province will get 1 to 5 centimeters. An official from the Korea Meteorological Administration explained that this cold wave is due to the influence of very cold air flowing in from the northwest, and emphasized that special care needs to be taken for the elderly, children, and outdoor workers, particularly around dawn and early morning, to avoid frostbite and cold-related illnesses. However, this cold spell will not last long. The sub-zero temperatures will continue into the weekend, but from tomorrow afternoon, temperatures will rise above freezing and the intensity of the cold will gradually ease. As the air remains frigid, people are advised to bundle up to stay warm when going outside. Jin, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has wrapped up his final working day at the Yongsan-based presidential office, which is set to be relocated to the traditional Blue House next week. This morning, he clocked in for work at the Yongsan office for the last time. He had a luncheon on Friday with the bereaved families of police officers and firefighters who died on the job, as his final official workday schedule in Yongsan. The president will start working at Cheongwade, known as the Blue House, from next Monday. Now, the symbolic phoenix flag will come down at midnight on December 29th at the old office and will be raised at the Blue House at the same time. It's been over a week since the initial episodes of Culinary Class Wars Season 2 were released, but the show is already topping Netflix's global charts, raising expectations that it will again gain even more international popularity. For more on this, we've invited our culture correspondent Park Gonu here in the studio. Welcome, Gonu.
Thanks for having me, Danny.
So, Gonu, how popular is the show at the moment?
Right. So, the second season of Culinary Class Wars topped the non-English TV show rankings after its release on December 16th. And during the third week of the month, the show recorded 5.5 million views, ranking first. And this marks the second consecutive time the show has topped the charts after its first season held the #1 spot for 3 straight weeks in 2024. In countries including South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore, Singapore, the show ranked #1 across all programs, while it was on top 10 in other countries too, especially among East Asian countries. Domestically, according to Fundex, a data analysis company, the show also topped the combined TV and OTT rankings for both dramas and non-dramas during the third week of December. And during the press conference I attended last week, I was able to see just how sincere these chefs are about cooking, helping me understand why viewers are so deeply immersed in the show, as the participants demonstrated a strong willingness to respect one another and engage in fair, good-natured competition.
I got to meet 99 contestants. No matter what they say about me, I just wanted to respect their lives and skills. I hoped they would make food for the happiness of more people, and because every single person is precious, I wished everyone the best of luck.
I also joined the show not only as a personal challenge, but also because I wanted to introduce Korean traditions to the world. So, rather than seeing it simply as a competition, I hope viewers will pay close attention to the philosophy and stories each chef brings.
And Ganu, on top of that, I hear the collaborations between the retail industry and the chefs featured on the show are popular yet again, right?
That's right. So, do you remember the Mont Blanc tiramisu on the show?
So hard to get.
Right. So that product drew massive attention at that time. And you may also recall how convenience store franchises, had people rush to get that after they released their own versions of the dessert, some through official collaboration with the chef and others without, triggering sellouts nationwide. And as we saw in season 1, the retail industry is already moving quickly to roll out similar collaborative products. One convenience store chain had already signed an exclusive contract with chef Son Jong-won even before the show's release, and launched a collaborative lunchbox ahead of the season as if they knew it would get popular once again. Starbucks has also joined the trend, as a sandwich developed in a collaboration with a Black Spoon chef from the show recorded sales 2 to 5 times higher than its regular sandwiches, despite its premium price of over $10. And there are plenty more collaborations currently in the pipeline. But one expert warned that such one-off collaborations may pose challenges unless changes are made.
The price has to be appropriate, and there needs to be some differentiation compared to existing products. If it's too expensive, it won't lead to repeat purchases. It's important that the programs and chefs related to these collaborations do not demand too much money and approach with the mindset of giving consumers satisfaction.
She added it would be better to adopt a two-track approach, one at a premium price point and another at a more affordable price. And as local products, some even featured on the show, have started gaining popularity among consumers, the professor said the trend is likely to last longer, creating a positive virtuous cycle for the economy.
As consumers show greater interest in local products, it could lead to more direct transactions and closer relationships with farmers. That would allow farmers to sell their products at fair prices, while consumers gain access to fresher ingredients, creating broader networks that benefit both.
And Konu, it's not just Culinary Class Wars dominating Netflix's charts now. What other contents are topping the list?
So the Netflix's original Korean film, The Great Flood, a film that sets after a massive flood hits an apartment building, starring actress Kim Da-mi, not the one that we are seeing in the studio right now, but star actress Kim Da-mi, also ranked first on Netflix's non-English movie chart during the third week of the month. The film recorded around 28 million views in just 3 days following its release last Friday. It also topped movie charts in 54 countries, including Spain, Brazil, and Thailand. Meanwhile, The Price of Confession, another film, also ranked 7th, remaining in the top 10 for 3 straight weeks after debuting at number 2 and topping the chart the week after.
A lot to binge watch over the weekend. Kanu, thanks for coming in tonight. You have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. And it's about time I go to see the rest of the show. So
okay.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
A fierce blast of cold air moved in overnight, making this morning the coldest we have had so far this winter. As temperatures rose a bit during the day, most cold wave warnings were lifted. However, some areas in the central regions and northern parts of Gyeongsangbuk-do province are still under cold wave warnings and advisories. This cold spell will continue tomorrow morning with Seoul plunging to minus 11 degrees Celsius. It will start to rise back up to average levels from tomorrow afternoon. There will be sub-zero cold tomorrow morning in most areas, with Chuncheon at minus 13 degrees and Gwangju at minus 4 degrees. Highs will top out at 4 degrees in Daejeon, 5 degrees in Daegu and Gyeongju. Between Sunday and Monday, rain or snow is expected in the central western regions and Jeollabuk-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
해금은 두 줄로 된 한 악기인데 저도 처음에 시작하게 된 거는 그 두 줄에서 너무 다양한 소리가 나오는 게 너무 신기했고 일단 해금이 되게 사람의 목소리랑 좀 비슷하다고 많이들 하세요. 줄을 눌러서 이렇게 음을 계속 왔다 갔다 진동하는 그런 형태를 띠고 있다 보니까 애절하다라고 많이 말씀을 해주시는 것 같아요. 이 곡은 제가 좀 오래 좋아했던 친구에 대한 제 여러 감정을 담은 곡인데요. 슬펐던 마음 혹은 뭐 고마웠던 마음 이런 여러 가지 감정들을 한데 묶어서 마음이 담긴 곡이라고 할 수 있습니다. 현대적인 음악으로 이제 재구성하는 단계를 거칠 때 항상 중요하게 생각하는 거는 음악의 분위기를 해치지 않는 선에서는 뭔가 전통적인 주법들, 식임새 이런 전통의 냄새라고 할까요? 맛? 이런 걸 살릴 수 있는 요소들을 좀 집어넣으려고 하는 편이에요. 저는 요새 연주하면서도 스스로가 마음도 편하고 몸도 편안한 음악들을 좀 자주 들려드리고 싶다 제가 음악으로 위로받았던 것처럼 제가 하는 음악들로 여러분들이 좀 위로받을 수 있는 순간이 있었으면 좋겠다. 그런 무대를 만들려고 노력해야겠다라는 생각을 했던 것 같습니다.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gen. As we close out the year 2025, the race for AI leadership is entering a decisive phase. Generative AI has reshaped industries and rewritten the rules of competition, pushing countries to act quickly, not just to build better technology, but to set the standards for how it's used. And at the same time, the widening divide in AI capabilities is testing the limits of international cooperation and trust. So in a world first, South Korea will begin enforcing a national AI Act in January 2026, marking a turning point in how governments approach both innovation and control. So where exactly are we now in the AI era, and what will it take to lead with impact? For a deeper discussion on this, we connect to Toby Walsh, Chief Scientist at University of New South Wales at AI Institute in Sydney. Great to see you.
Good day.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Professor Walsh, let's begin right away. We're seeing an explosive wave of interest and investment in AI around the world. So from where you stand, how would you assess the current stage of global AI development?
Well, I've been working in the field now for 40 years, and I have to say it's the most exciting time to be working in artificial intelligence. We're making real progress. What surprises me is not the technology. The technology is perhaps where I might have imagined it was when I started 40 years ago. But what has surprised me is the speed and scale at which we're investing in the technology. It's over $1 billion a day. That's more than a quarter of the world's R&D budget being spent on one technology. We've never seen such a concentration of resources being thrown at one technology before, which is why it seems to be arriving at such velocity, because it is arriving at such velocity.
Definitely. So the momentum right now is unlike anything we've been seeing before. Now, building on that, generative AI is spreading really fast and transforming how industries and economies operate. So in your view, Professor, what is the most important structural change that it's actually bringing to us?
Well, the most important change is that it's being embedded into almost everything that we use. It's going to become very shortly the operating system of all our devices. In every workflow, in every program, you're going to have some AI assistant that's sitting there waiting to help you. It's going to be embedded into the fabric of the internet, embedded into the fabric of anything that's got electricity, is going to have some AI sprinkled on it to make it that much more useful, that much more productive. So it's wonderful to see that the technology that we've been working on now for 40 or 50 years is suddenly reached a maturity that it can actually have a positive impact upon so many different disciplines. I mean, it's not limited to healthcare, not limited to education, it's not limited to industry, it's not limited to government. It is going to be found absolutely everywhere.
Right, and this shift is really reaching deep into the structure of how we work and also live. But the important thing is that not everyone has the luxury to enjoy these developments. Not all countries and companies are advancing at the same pace. So how do you think this divide could affect the global economy and society overall, Professor?
Well, I think we're at a critical point. We are seeing at the moment that it's a technology that is amplifying inequity within our society and within society. So both within countries, we're seeing those people with wealth get wealthier. And between countries, we're seeing certain countries pull ahead. So I do think that's something to be worried about, that we might see, after we had the physical colonization of the planet, we might have the digital colonization of the planet where one or two nations take all the spoils. And within those one or two nations, it's a small number of companies that take many of the benefits.
Mm-hmm. So in order to, prevent that kind of a monopoly or something from happening, what do you think global cooperation could help?
Well, I certainly think it's going to help if smaller nations like Korea, band together with their trading partners. Then you're going to be able to compete. In the long term, I'm sure AI is going to be like electricity. I mean, indeed, AI is often compared to electricity. And as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be added to all our electrical devices. And it's worth remembering that the whole world benefited from electricity. It wasn't just the initial adopters. It wasn't just the Westinghouses and the Teslas, the people who were developing electrical products at the start 100 or so years ago. It was the whole world. Everywhere you go, every country you go, electricity is being used to power our devices and to transmit our data. So all of us, the whole planet, got to benefit from electricity. And I'm confident that if we're careful, the whole planet will benefit from artificial intelligence as well. It will be added to all those electrical devices. That doesn't mean in the short term we might have some very big winners. And at the moment, we do seem to be getting some very big winners. But, we've had this before. We had this with the Industrial Revolution. We had a concentration of wealth into the hands of the few. We had what were then called the robber barons, and we did actually have to make sure that they didn't get all the spoils. We did actually ensure that we applied antitrust laws, that we broke up the railway monopolies, we broke up the oil monopolies. We've actually always had to go in and ensure that monopolies didn't rent seek, didn't seek all advantage to themselves. And I think we have to do the same again, where we're seeing natural economies of scale and concentrations of power. These tend to be data monopolies. And so I think there's an important role for regulators, for governments to step in and ensure that there is healthy competition and there is a diversity of choice.
Definitely. So we would look forward to more cooperation from governments and countries for more people to enjoy the latest developments. Now, when it comes to the global AI race, it's largely led by the U.S. and China. Professor, where do you see South Korea standing right now? And what would you say is Korea's unique strength in that area?
Well, I think Korea has a number of unique strengths that they can play to that will allow them to have perhaps an unfair advantage compared to some other nations. It's a very educated workforce that you have there. You make significant investments in R&D. You've shown in the past, whether it be semiconductors or cars, that you can compete on the international stage, and there's no reason why you couldn't do that with artificial intelligence. And indeed, I think there's some structural advantage within your society. Whenever I go to Korea, I'm always surprised. I always seem to be 5 minutes in the future. You do seem a nation that's very keen and willing to embrace the future. You're always very quick to adopt the latest technologies. You have some unique things to sell to the world. I mean, I just look at what you've done with K-pop. It's absolutely fantastic to see that Korean culture is now part of the zeitgeist of the world, that you've been able to sell that music and that culture to the rest of us. And you could do the same with artificial intelligence.
Yes, and Korea's role could even become more pivotal as the landscape evolves. We're going to look forward to that. But alongside all the promises that AI brings, there's also concerns, of course, around safety. It's continuing to grow lately. Before, you've mentioned that stupid AI matters more than smart AI. We wonder, what do you mean by that? Could you explain for our viewers?
Well, yes. I mean, there's lots of people have a lot of concerns about artificial intelligence, and there's certainly things to be concerned about. It's like any technology, it's going to have both positive and negative impacts, and we should be concerned about the negative impacts. We've talked about some of those already. I mean, the inequity that it might create, but there's many other things that we should be worried about. One of the things that people do worry about, and I try and calm these fears, is fears that Hollywood has given you, that the machines are going to take over and they're going to become sentient. And that's a very, very distant future, if ever, is going to happen. I think we have to be much more concerned about handing responsibility to machines that aren't capable enough. That we've got self-driving cars on our roads that may be killing pedestrians because they're not good at self-driving enough. That we should be worried about handing decisions to machines, not just self-driving cars, but important decisions about hiring people, about welfare payments, important decisions increasingly that we're handing to machines. And the machines may not be competent enough and maybe too stupid to be making the right sorts of decisions. So I've argued in the past that it's stupid AI, not super intelligent AI, that we have to worry about.
So it's largely about how you hand them some responsibility. Speaking of which, you've consistently emphasized the need for responsible development and strong oversight to ensure AI safety. So from your standpoint, what is the single most urgent issue that global regulation efforts need to tackle right now?
Well, the thing that's concerned me, it's concerned me for more than a decade now, and many of my colleagues, thousands of my colleagues, is the way that AI is going to transform warfare. Indeed, the way that AI is transforming warfare. We only have to see the vision coming back from the Ukraine, or the vision coming back from Gaza, to see the new technologies, many of them powered by artificial intelligence, that are changing the very character of war. And when we hand over those critical decisions, the decisions as to who lives or who dies to machines, we're crossing a moral red line. We're going to make warfare a much more terrible thing. I mean, it's worth remembering we have made some good decisions as a society, globally, about which technologies to let into warfare and which technologies not. We've decided that chemical weapons, biological weapons, cluster munitions, blinding lasers, actually quite a host of technologies, should be regulated, that they will actually make warfare a more terrible thing, not a better thing. And I think that we should be careful about trying to draw the lines where we let artificial intelligence into the battlefield. There are places where it will be beneficial. As an example, clearing minefields, a perfect job for a robot. But handing over those decisions to AI-powered swarms of drones, I think, would make warfare look like a bad Hollywood movie, because it would be a bad Hollywood movie.
Wow, a very important point that you've pointed out, the use of AI in warfare. It's a very crucial thing that we really have to think about, more than just how it affects our daily lives. Now, in line with those safety concerns, South Korea, we're set to roll out the world's first comprehensive AI Basic Act by next month. And as the EU signals it may ease its approach to AI regulation, how do you view Korea's decision in the broader global context, Professor?
I very much welcome Korea's decision. I think we need more regulation for AI, not less. I'm disappointed that the US has backpedaled significantly on the idea of regulating AI, and somewhat disappointed with the European Union, which had been leading the way, but now seems to be moving a bit more slowly in terms of AI regulation. We've seen that the tech companies are not very good at regulating themselves. They're not very good at marking their own homework. We've seen the harms that that's brought in places like social media, and we're taking action. Many countries are starting to take action. My country, Australia, for example, has just passed some groundbreaking legislation to limit people under the age of 16 from social media. I think that's to be welcomed. I think we need to be more preemptive this time. Artificial intelligence, not to repeat the mistakes that we made with social media and only start regulating it after the harms became very apparent and a generation of young people had been hurt by these technologies. We need to be more on the front foot with artificial intelligence. So I very much welcome Korea's decision to regulate the space. And I think we shouldn't listen too carefully to the tech companies complaining loudly, as they always do, that this is going to impose upon them, this is going to stifle innovation. We discovered, for example, when we imposed the social media regulation, that it was actually quite easy for them to have imposed better safety standards. Indeed, things that they could have done 10 years ago, they're now starting to do. And indeed, we'll actually encourage innovation, encourage adoption of these technologies, because we'll actually trust it more. So I actually very much welcome it. I think that that you shouldn't listen to the naysayers, that it will be like the social media regulation in Australia, entirely successful.
Well, do you have anything to add on, or any tips that you hope like regulators would consider regarding that?
Well, I think it's important that we empower the regulators both with expertise and money. It takes resources. They're standing up against some of the biggest companies in the world these days are the tech companies. They're starting to employ plentiful lobbyists. And the regulators, in my experience in many countries, haven't been given enough resources, don't necessarily have the right expertise. And so we need to give them the tools with which to push back and to monitor what's going on in this space, and to be able to ensure that we actually price the externalities properly here, ensure that they behave in ways that are responsible, because increasingly we're living in this AI-generated world, and it's increasingly important that that's a safe space for all of us.
But there's always a dilemma when it comes to implementing these kinds of legal actions. When it comes to the Korea AI Act, it includes clauses with direct industry impact, like mandatory watermarking of AI-generated content. And some in Korea's AI sector worry that this kinds of regulation is moving really faster than how much the industry can keep up. So how do you think we can strike the right balance between regulation and innovation, Professor?
Well, I think it's important that we frame the regulation in a reasonable and responsible and adaptive way. As an example, the social media regulation in Australia, it's actually phrased in a very imprecise way, which is absolutely perfect. They just say that the social media companies have to take reasonable measures to ensure that young people are not allowed onto social media, and it's not defined what those reasonable measures are. And indeed, those it's up to the regulator, the e-safety commissioners, to work out whether they're doing the right thing, and that will change with time as the technologies improve. I think our standards will change, and so you don't want to set these things in stone. You want to be very agile. I mean, that's how AI works. You've got to be very agile in how you implement it, and you've got to be very agile in how you regulate it. So I don't think we should be making regulations that's very specific and very concrete. We should be making regulation that's very agile to deal with a technology that itself is very agile.
Right, being flexible would help in seeing the balance on that. Now, looking ahead, Korea has set a bold goal to become one of the world's top 3 AI powers by 2030. Professor, what do you believe are the most critical elements that Korea needs to focus on to, make that leap?
Well, I guess one of the things I love about Korea is that you always set yourself bold ambitions. I'm not sure that you'll succeed, but in trying, you will make great progress, and you will contribute to the Korean economy in huge ways. So I encourage the ambition. I welcome the ambition. And there's a couple of things that you have to invest in. I mean, first of all, there's just the digital infrastructure. I mean, we used to have to build roads and railways. Nowadays, we need to have to build the digital infrastructure. There's the data centers, the vast investments that are being made these days in data centers, the pipes, the satellite links, the undersea cables, and then the last mile, the fiber optics, increasingly these days that connect us, and the 4G, 5G, and 6G networks that we connect into all of this bandwidth with. So that's just table stakes. Just to be able to play, you've got to have that digital infrastructure. The other two things that are incredibly important, and Korea has some natural advantages in these two spaces. The first is human capital. Is to have an educated and AI literate workforce, so that they can build this technology, that can understand its capabilities, understand its limitations. So having a nationwide AI literacy program that covers everyone from cradle to grave, from kindergarten to aged care. You want an AI literate population, not just a workforce, but a population. And then the third thing that you have to invest in, and it's incredibly important, and has always driven the AI revolution, is data. Again, Korea will have some unique data assets, Korean health records, for example, Korean education records. There's some wonderful data sets that you should be trying to leverage. And one place, of course, to do that well is government. People always forget that one of the businesses that has most to benefit from artificial intelligence is government. It's a third of GDP. $1 in $3 that you spend is the dollars that the government is spending. They're the biggest business in town. They're bigger than any other business. They've got more data than everyone else. They know everything about us from birth to death. They can use AI to more effectively, more efficiently deliver services to their public. So they have an almost unbounded mission that they can try and make better with artificial intelligence. So one of the best places to ensure that you become an AI first nation is within your government.
Wow, a very exciting future that we hope to see, as you mentioned, with the help of expanding digital infrastructure, education of manpower, and even making the use of the data, important data, that would be definitely helpful. Now, before we let you go, Professor, as we see AI becoming deeply embedded in every part of Korean society and daily life, what kind of mindset and capabilities do you think ordinary people like us and communities should start building to prepare for this huge transformation?
Well, I think we need to focus on, what are our unique advantages? The machines are going to do lots of the dull, repetitive things. So what does it makes us humans special? Those are going to be the important values, the things that are going to ensure that you're well paid and highly rewarded in the AI future that we move into. And those are things that are things like our emotional intelligence, our social intelligence. Machines that don't have emotional and social intelligence. I'm told the most important skill of a CEO, of a politician, of a psychiatrist, of a salesperson is their emotional social intelligence. You've got to understand people, you've got to lead people, you've got to inspire people. Then there's our creativity. Again, machines are not very creative. Humans are much more creative, and we're going to value human creations ever more. And then finally, there's, again, something Koreans, I think, are well known for is our grit. Humans have, the humans that succeed are those who've got a little grit and persistence. I think those are going to be the important skills of the future, the ones that keep you ahead of the robots.
Right, so we would have to prepare for that. And if the society isn't really, the technology itself alone won't be enough. We would be looking forward to an exciting future with the development of AI. Thank you so much for your discussion and your insights today, Professor Walsh.
Been a pleasure.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.